It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Hello, it's Dr. Justin Coulson with a conversation today that I have been itching to have for months. So a couple of months ago, Rebecca Sparrow, who has one of the most interactive, engaging and uplifting Facebook pages on the internet, started a conversation about kids in Year 12, Year 11 and Year 12 around the country who are going through so much pain and I'm going to use the word trauma as it's associated with their schoolwork because of the pressure to do well, to get into university, to get the results, all of the pressure that's on these kids and the curriculum demands that these kids are experiencing. Well, Beck caught my attention, but she also reached out to Madonna King, who is the author of the brand new and wonderful book called L-Platers. L-Platers is Madonna King's new book, How to Support Your Teen Daughter on the Road to Adulthood. And Madonna and Beck have started this big, I don't know what I'd call it, a project, I guess, to try to help us to work out what's going on with the curriculum and how we can better support our children at such a stressful time of life. Madonna King, who has been an award-winning journalist, who has written a bunch of books that have been so well received, including Being 14 and now L-Platers and a couple of others as well, has joined me for the conversation today on the podcast. Madonna, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for having this chat with me.
Thanks for asking, Justin.
Can we talk about this evolution, this conversation that Beck started one day because she was in a bit of a mood on Facebook that has literally exploded with thousands and thousands of people becoming involved and creating a whole lot of input for you?
Yeah, isn't she gorgeous? Like, this just worried her because someone had sent an email and she asked about it and all of a sudden she was just inundated. So we caught up for a cup of coffee and thought, what can we do? Because for people to actually put pen to paper or to get onto that keyboard and explain with such rawness what their children are going through is a pretty difficult thing. So we thought, why don't we just set up a website and ask people to upload without identification their story? And so we did it. It's called Testing Times at School, an AT spelt out. And Justin, it was phenomenal. Like, she mentioned it on her Facebook page and it just went berserk. And there wasn't a day that I didn't cry reading them. We've got more than 1,000 and they're the ones we've uploaded. We've not uploaded any that identify a school, a child, something that paints how someone may have taken their life. We've been very, very careful in what we've uploaded, but more than 1,000 stories. And what they do is just parents, teachers, medicos and students say how this curriculum is currently crueling their last year at school.
Talk to me more about that. I mean, this whole conversation came about, as I recall, from somebody who said what kids are expected to do in grade 11 and 12 is at least at the level of university in first or second year uni. Am I getting that right?
That's what people are saying.
Yeah.
So the biggest jump is now year 10 to year 11. That's what all my research shows. And some educators are saying we need to talk more to parents about that jump. We're demanding children decide what subjects they choose in year 9. So they get to the end of year 12 and think, I didn't do biology, I can't be a nurse. Or I didn't do specialist maths, I can't do economics, my life's over.
Which is patently false, right? I mean, it's so false. So there's all this pressure on our 14 and 15-year-olds to know what they're going to do when they're, I don't know, in year 12 or in university.
And the stories that have come in paint this picture where, oh, my heart goes out to teachers. Like, one teacher just said with such emotion in a note to us that she dreads a student asking a question out of curiosity, because that may take her down a path that she'd love to venture down, but it means she can't get through the content of the curriculum. So she pleads with kids just to, let's get through the content, let's get through the content. That's wrong.
That's astonishing. I've got a book on my shelf. It's one of my favourite books of all time. It's called The Hungry Mind by Professor Susan Engel. And it's about how our education system has, I think you used the word crueled, the education system has effectively stymied curiosity in kids. Because we're telling them what they've got to learn, when they've got to learn it, how they've got to learn it, and why they should have learned it this way and not that way. And she found that kids in primary school, they only ask 1 to 2 questions per hour other than, can I go to the toilet? Or, like, in terms of curiosity, it's just not there. And isn't that the purpose of learning?
isn't the job of the education system to teach our children how to learn?
Yeah, lifelong learners.
Learning off quotes for an English exam when once you graduate, you look up the quotes. If you can't work this out in a team environment at work, you ask someone. But those skills of teamwork and an inquiring mind, curiosity, listening, critical thinking are not taught or tested. And so we are developing graduates that may be academically bright in terms of the words they can use or the 2,000 word essays they can write. But I do think that sense of what else can I learn? What else can I ask? Where might this lead? Are questions that's being really hammered out of them before they actually even graduate.
I have 2 points on this, Madonna. The first is I used to be a university lecturer. I lectured from first year psychology through to master's level psychology. And I can tell you, as somebody who has had a lot of time spent in that university context lecturing, my first 3 daughters have all studied psychology in grades 11 and 12. 2 of them actually dropped out because they hated it so much. But as I've looked at the content that they've been expected to be assessed on, I've watched my year 11 daughters being assessed on content that I was often asking second-year university students to develop. And it's astounding to me at 2 levels. First of all, it's astounding from the point of view that why are we asking our 16-year-olds to know what a second-year university student might know? But secondly, school teachers. Are we honestly expecting school teachers to be assessing psychology content at a second-year university level when they're not psychologically trained? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is crazy.
Well, and what underpins that is if we had the best education system in the world, if our students were graduating ahead of those in Asia or Europe, you would say, all right, well, it's hard.
It must be worth it.
And that's the opportunity cost, but some will think it's worth it.
Right.
But we are not. We're going down. So at every level, I think something is wrong. And, I mentioned the website that Beck and I set up. I just, before we got on, randomly with my eyes closed, picked one note. Let me read it to you. I work in an emergency department in a New South Wales hospital. I see people under 25 coming in with mental health concerns. The amount of young people coming to ED with suicidal thoughts, actual self-harm and attempted suicide that report the stress of year 11 and 12 as the reason they want to die is outstanding. I see a lot of students at the start of year 11 when they first realise the expectations and workload and then increase in term 3 of year 12. These students say things like, I can't keep up with the work, I'll never get into uni. What's the point in living if I can't pass school? I'm dumb. I'm stupid. I'm a disappointment. I'll never be able to get a decent job. That's just a mental health professional in New South Wales who is talking about a public school. 1 out of 1,000. And yet we don't even have someone with a mental health background or someone like you sitting on our curriculum review boards.
Hey, I'm waving my hand around. I'll do it. I'd love to be in there.
Yeah, so but surely if we are looking out for the mental health of our children, and I get emotional talking about this because some children will fly through, but many won't. Our teaching, and bless our teachers, they can't teach individually. So are they teaching to the top of the class, the bottom of the class, the middle of the class? Certainly in independent private schools, they're kind of trying to lift everyone so that they appear in these league tables because that is what is required of them. But what is happening at a very private level is children are thinking they're not worth it and they're giving up. And we as adults and educators and just people with a heart and a head have to sit down and think, well, how can we not decrease the academic merit of what we do, but we need to deliver it perhaps in a different way or do it in a way that recognises a A in physics is not the road to be Prime Minister.
Madonna, after the break, let's talk about your meeting with the curriculum body. You and Rebecca had a sit-down face-to-face with them. And we'll also talk about some solutions for parents who are hoping and praying that a curriculum change might come along. But at the moment, there's only so much you can do. We'll talk about what we can do as parents to help our kids through this troubling time. That's right after this on the Happy Families podcast. Get curious, not furious. Be where your feet are. Mistakes lead to mastery. High emotions, low intelligence. Have you ever heard these or any of the other principles I share and thought, I need to stick that on my wall? Well, now you can. The Happy Families team has pulled out the best Justinisms for A5 mini posters. Perfect for your home or even the classroom and easy to grab at happyfamilies.com.au. It's the Happy Families podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. Today, a very sobering conversation with Madonna King, the author of the fabulous book, L-Platers, How to Support Your Teen Daughter on the Road to Adulthood. I mean, this is the age that we're talking about, isn't it, Madonna? We've got these kids who are leaving high school, they're emerging into adulthood, they need our support. All of this excessive and unnecessary demand is being placed on them academically, sometimes by us as parents because we just want our kids to do well in life, sometimes by teachers because they want the kids to do well, or a cynic might say because the school needs to have some high results because it's good for their marketing, and sometimes on themselves, right? I mean, it's not even an adult that's involved in this, it's just the kids putting this pressure on themselves.
I think that's the big one. I think parents are recognising the need for their child to be happy. They're wondering why they're so sad and feeling isolated and not connected. And I think schools do everything they can within. It's a systemic problem. It's not an individual school problem,
That's right.
I don't think.
Yeah.
But what we are seeing, and I'm seeing in my research, is girls quite young look around, take on the messages of those delivered by social media or in their friendship group, and they see their friends getting 8 out of 10 at maths, they're getting 6. And instead of thinking it's like learning to ice skate, I've got to practice, they think, I'm dumb, I'm never going to be good at maths, and therefore they decide as young as 10, 11 and 12 that they won't take that stream. And so I think very much it's girls particularly, and that's my specialty rather than boys, putting pressure on themselves and then judging themselves brutally when they don't measure up, and almost giving up, Justin, almost giving up rather than thinking, all right, this is a challenge and how do I actually develop a confidence and an independence in actually nailing this?
It reminds me of some two different bits of research that have really struck me. The one is around perfectionism. So research shows that perfectionists do extremely well in school because you've got this fixed way of doing things. You're in very clearly defined parameters, and there's a clear pathway to perfectionism or something close to it, to an excellent outcome. But the research also shows that once they get out of high school, perfectionists fall and fail badly. It's a recipe for disaster once we get out of the very clear structures of school. The other thing that your conversation reminded me of is a psychological reality called self-other knowledge asymmetry, which basically means I can see what's happening inside my head and I'm falling apart. I'm one hot mess. You're getting A's. You're killing it. You're on the stage getting merit awards and you're this and you're that. You're amazing. And so I've got all this self-knowledge about my own pathetic failings, and my only knowledge of you as an other is that you're the star of the show. Therefore, I assess that I must be deficient and dysfunctional as a human, and you are perfect and know how to do it. What we don't know is the mess that's happening inside the head of the person who we're watching. That there's an asymmetry between our knowledge of what's going on between self and other.
And I think our kids are really bright. For L-Platers, I sought the counsel of 1,000 girls aged 16, 17 and 18. And some of them picked up on that and even said, I am jealous of such and such because she's happy, or I want to feel contented like such and such. And I thought that was really clever because they're understanding that all of this wallpaper that dominates their lives is not delivering that happiness that they deserve in their final year of school. And I think they've got to start listening to that little voice inside of them, not the voice outside of them. They've got to nurture that voice inside of them and grow that. And I think from a parent's perspective, we've got to let them fail. And I say that and people think, well, you don't want your kid to fail, and of course you don't. But, just in my own family, I have a daughter who is quite bright. She works hard, but I'll still remember this science paper that she did in year 10. And she finished it, handed it in, and as she handed it in, she turned it over and realised there was a mark, 10 marks on the back that she didn't see. Well, The crying lasted for a long, long, long time. But you know what? And I felt so sorry for her. And she ended up getting quite a good mark in any case. But now in year 11 and 12, and she's about to go into externals in year 11 and 12, the first thing she does when she gets an exam paper is turns over and sees the back. She failed and she learnt a lesson. And I only say that because the more we let our children fail, even in little things, the more they learn to independently make a decision. And I think there's been this correlation where we don't want them to fail. We're having less and less children and we've more and more invested, and COVID's made us want to deliver to them what we can. But as a result of that, I think we're almost setting them up for failure the moment all those structures, school structures disappear. There's not a teacher saying, look, do 40 minutes on homework on this, or here's a practice paper, or hand in your draft, or, go home and do the, oh, you don't look well, darling. Are you okay? Did you break up with your boyfriend? All of that disappears in November of year 12. And that's where, like a big balloon, so many children just deflate. And they don't know how to get that energy, that air back.
I want to wrap it up there, but I feel like there's a couple of other things that I want to throw in as well, Madonna, and I'd love to get your feedback on it based on what you've read. So one thing that I think we need to do is let kids know that the ATAR actually doesn't matter that much at all. We've got universities accepting early entry. In fact, I think that it's reasonable to say university isn't the be-all and end-all either. There are so many people who do so many things that don't require a university degree that make valuable contributions and help them to lead meaningful lives, and they raise great families. And they're like, this idea that university matters so much. We place this premium on the value of a university education. Now, I believe in getting all the education you can get, but I look at my dad who runs a furniture moving company, and I think to myself, I love that man, and I don't really care that he doesn't have a university degree. He's a great dad. He's got 6 fantastic kids, and I so appreciate him. I look at the guy who came and fixed my heater the other day, or the bloke that's supplying me with gas at my house, or the person who keeps my lawns green, or whatever it is, all that sort of stuff. And I just think university degrees are important, and we definitely need them, but not everyone has to have one. And putting pressure on our kids to go to university, especially when they don't know what they want to do. I mean, as a university lecturer, formally, I don't believe that kids should be at university, full stop, end of story. University is a place for adults, not kids. And when I look at those first years that came through my lecture theatres and my tutorial groups, I reckon 10% of them were ready for university. The other 90%, wasting their time, wasting money, ridiculous.
So 2 things. I think our schools need to explain to parents and to children that only up to 50% of children do not sit for an ATAR. Many of them go on to university, but we keep hearing, particularly in private and independent schools, that 100% of kids get an ATAR, and many schools encourage that when you don't need an ATAR.
Yeah.
You don't need an ATAR to go to university. There are other paths. You don't need an ATAR to get a good job. I think that's really important. And the other thing I would say is, just to back you about that adults and university, COVID has had more impact on this generation and this cohort of kids than any other. Mark McCrindle, the demographer, says from a health perspective, it was the elderly, but from a social and economic perspective, it's the kids we're talking about. And I think it is really, really important for us to understand that they have missed the experiences that you and I had, that their big sisters and brothers had, to make judgments, to take calculated risks, to make decisions and regret them. And what we are seeing now in first-year university students is children more like 15 than 18. And as parents, I think we need to gift back those experiences and be aware that our children are graduating without that competence, confidence, and independence that pre-COVID was so easy to give them.
Gosh, I feel like we could talk about this for days. We've gone well over time, and yet we've barely scratched the surface. The work that you and Beck have done on this, I'm going to call it a project. I know it's informal and it's just kind of evolving, but the work that you've done on this project is important. It's created a conversation that matters, and I love what you're doing. If people want to find out more about it and get their stories on your website, whereabouts should they go?
Follow Beck on Facebook, Rebecca Sparrow, or go to www.testingtimes@school, @ is spelt out, and you will read what other parents, teachers, students, academics and medicos are saying. add yours, but please don't identify the school or your child. And the more we get, the more we can present to government.
And just congratulations on great work. Additionally, if you would like more information about what Madonna has to offer for your late teen daughters from age 16 up, check out her book, L-Platers, How to Support Your Teen Daughter on the Road to Adulthood. Madonna, such a pleasure to talk to you. I wish we had more time. This has been great.
You too. Thanks, Justin.
The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media with Craig Bruce as our executive producer. If you'd like more info about making your family happier, visit happyfamilies.com.au.